Well, Chairman of the Republican National Committee, Reince Preibus, is here to talk about those questions and more. Good to see you today.
Hey,
thanks for coming in.
You bet.
What do you make of this? I mean, you saw there Treasury Secretary Jack Lew saying, you have to stop saying, unless I get my way, I'm going to shut everything down. Is that an accurate portrayal of what's going on?
Well, look, I mean, the president's not even willing to negotiate over crumbs here. I mean, his basic attitude is there's no negotiation. Unlike, back when Bill Clinton was president, one thing that I remember from that shutdown was that every day Bob Dole and Newt Gingrich would go in and sit down with Bill Clinton, and every day they'd have a press conference and they'd say, here's what happened, here's what we're willing to do, here's what the president's willing to do. With Barack Obama, it's his way or the highway. So, I mean, first of all, I think that the American people agree that we spend too much money. They think that the debt is out of control. They don't like Obamacare, and they want something done in Washington. And all we're asking for is to have some serious meeting of the minds on some of these issues. But the president's not willing. That's what's going on.
Okay, a couple things. You mentioned all those points, and our polling shows the same thing. Polling across the board shows that people have those feelings about spending, about the health care law, all those kinds of things. But also our poll shows that when it comes to a shutdown, 67% of the American people think it's a bad idea, and only 30% think it's a good idea. So if the GOP is pinned with being responsible for the shutdown, and that's debatable, clearly,
right.
What do you do with that perception? Because it's not a good one for the party.
Well, I mean, perception, today may not be the perception tomorrow. I don't disagree that people don't like a shutdown, but I also don't agree that I also agree that people don't like Obamacare. And so there's another poll that came out that said 76% of the American people think that Harry Reid and Barack Obama should come to the table and end this. That's what I think too. That's what I think Speaker Boehner thinks. That's what we all think. So, look, I think the president has a real failure in his leadership style, and being president isn't easy. But being a leader is also someone who can sit down with Harry Reid and John Boehner and say, okay, guys, let's get together and figure out how we're going to fix this. And that's what we're looking for.
Well, let me ask you about this, because all throughout his presidency, first term and now well into his second term, even Democrats said that they weren't able to get FaceTime or to sit down and have these conversations with the president when they thought it was important. So if he hasn't built those relationships with a lot of those leaders, how can you now expect that he's going to sit down with everybody, including the GOP? It would, to a lot of people on the Hill and who cover the Hill, it would be a change for him, a major change from the way he operates. And he will say he won the election, and elections have consequences. And basically it's law of the land. It's been upheld by the Supreme Court, and there's no conversation to have.
Well, he's an aloof president. I mean, if there's one way to describe Obama, he's an aloof president who's a very good campaigner. And that's him in a nutshell. Good at campaigning, terrible at leading as president of the United States. You're right, doesn't have the relationships even on his own side. And now you're seeing over the weekend that Democrats are starting to vote with the Republicans in the House. And one thing that people forget, and they shouldn't, is that the House was won by the Republicans as well. They have a responsibility to their constituents. And so that's what happens with split government. So Republicans in the House have to sit down with Democrats in the Senate and the Democrat president that we have in Barack Obama and come up with a solution. That's what we want. That's what we've always asked for. But so far nothing, not even on the basic crumbs on some of these issues that we've been dealing with.
Let me ask you a question. I'm sure you've been asked before, and it's one that people ask me all the time. They say it appears that when it gets to these nasty battles, and there are internal struggles within the individual parties, Democrats are better at putting on a united front publicly. Republicans, not so much. And certainly here, we're going to have two members coming up who certainly, same party, but definitely don't see this thing the same way.
Well, I mean, the votes on the floor have been the same way. And clearly, I think the House is pretty united, and so is the Senate. But the Democrats also have the media on their side. I mean, the Democrats have every, network morning show, every story you can imagine. In the meantime, Obamacare is rolled out. Not a single person has been able to sign up in California. His signature legislation is a complete disaster. People don't want it. They're barricading the World War II memorial. He's barricading grass behind us here in the mall that are just flat, barricading parks that have toddler swing sets on it and nobody's there. I mean, this is what this president's all about. He is petty, he is aloof, and he is not willing to lead this country in a difficult time. And I agree, it is difficult. And sometimes you get blamed for things, but that's what campaigns are about, and that's what the next year is going to be about. It's explaining to the American people what was at stake and why these individual members voted a certain way, and I think it will bode well for us.
All right. Chairman, always good to see you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you so much.